What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale, coming at you with my one, my only, my certified fantabulous co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. It's a special day around these parts because we are doing our first ever Under the Radar Storylines draft now that we are almost a month into the NBA season, Grant. And so this will give us an opportunity to, one, talk about things that we do believe are flying under the radar, and also hit on some teams and players that maybe we haven't been able to go in depth with each other just yet. Before we get started and lay out how we're approaching this, Grant, how the heck are you doing?
I just want to say you sound great. Nobody listening to this is going to care, but boy, do we have some audio issues in the lead up to
Man,
this.
we had audio issues in the previous podcast. Thank you to everyone who listened to it. We believe they're fixed now, with the exception of...
But we'll see.
We'll
can
see.
say?
Yeah.
Or we'll hear, I guess.
I wanted to ask you, when we're approaching this and we'll alternate picks, how are you, when you're saying, okay, this is my first pick, are you taking something that you just think has flown under the radar the most, or that you believe is a combination of, we're not talking about it a ton, but this means a whole bunch more than some of the other things we'll talk about?
I would add a third component. Both of those things are factors.
Sorry.
Nope, I'm fighting the hypothetical. The third component is, I just want to talk about this because I think it's interesting, and hopefully that comes through. It's the under the radar thing is always tricky because by definition, if we're talking about it, it's on our radar. It's just so we're kind of saying this is something that I think warrants a little more attention than it's gotten. But then, of course, if you're a fan of this team, you've absolutely paid attention to that thing because it's on your radar. So take it that way. Ultimately, it's just something I think is interesting that I want to discuss with you, and I'm not going to apologize for that.
So I approached it from something similar, but it was more so I think that this matters, and it's not being talked about enough, but I'm going to wait what's the gravity of the impact this is going to have on this team or just on the rest of the season, or maybe what we think about in some cases, just the landscape of the entire league. I don't have anything else, though. Do you have anything else before we dig in?
I think we should get to it.
I am an incredibly generous person, so I'm going to give you the first pick in this draft.
Yeah. I'm going to select Dan. I don't know what to label it exactly, but let's talk about Draymond Green's agenda comments. By the time you're hearing this,
I should have known you were going to go there, but I didn't think you were going to go there.
Really? It's the thing I want to talk about most. Yeah, why not? You have to draft for yourself. It's not about winning. The way you win a draft is to get.
If you don't look out for you, who will?
Yeah, you got to pick the things that matter to you. It doesn't need to be the best. No, I think in a real way this was interesting. So if you're a Warriors fan, you're aware of this. This was like way down the list, I think, on some ESPN. If you're just clicking through the news there, the Warriors they've had terrible losses this year. Indiana, Milwaukee, they've been terrible on the road. They get just rocked by the Thunder, which, it turns out no shame because that just happens to everybody, but it was a particular just drubbing. And then after the fact, Draymond Green says, I think everybody was committed to winning back then, talking about the immediate aftermath of the Jimmy Butler trade last year and doing that any way possible. Right now, it doesn't feel that way. Further, he said, I think everyone has a personal agenda in this league, but you have to make those personal agendas work within the team confines. If it doesn't work, you kind of got to get rid of your agenda, or eventually, this is great, or eventually the agenda is the cause of someone getting rid of you. Pretty solid wordsmithing there. In that article, or in one of the articles with those quotes, Anthony Slater, who's very close to the Warriors of ESPN, mentions Brandon Podziemski and Jonathan Kuminga by name, does not mention any other players. And the reason he mentions them, one, is because they were both removed from the starting lineup the next game. But two, this is to quote Slater, Podziemski made a number of comments in the lead up to the season about his long-term career ambitions, including a news conference answer to a question about whether he wanted to be as great as Steph Curry. The pull quote from that is Podziemski said he wants to be better than him, which elicited some, quote, eye rolls and continued references from several within the organization. You can imagine everyone just giving him shit all the time for, oh, look, here comes better than Steph. Look out. The context of that is not as bad as it makes it sound less terrible. What the actual quote is Podziemski is kind of asked, it's in the vein of, what makes Curry great, or like what makes a great player. And Pajemski's being complimentary, talking about like how not everybody essentially has the same drive as Steph, and what it takes to be that great. And he says, I want to be better than him. I think that's a tall task, but I want to maximize my talent in the league and get as much as I can, get as much out of it as I can. Like, pretty benign when framed that way. Just like, maybe don't say you want to be better than Steph on the Warriors. So the agendas thing with Kuminga has been a longstanding, issue of like, he wants to be something other than what the Warriors want him to be. That's the central tension that produced the contract dispute and the lineup, shuffling him in and out of the starting five. I was curious because watching the team this year, I don't know if maybe you can chime in here. It never seemed to me like, oh my God, Pajemski's out to get his numbers, or, Kuminga is really, if anything, Kuminga has embraced the team stuff more. He's rebounding this year. He's been assigned to the most dangerous opposing matchup. Not saying he's done well in that job, but he's embraced it. So I don't see anything on the court that speaks to these guys are not taking a team first approach, right? And you can look at some of the data too, like the another pull quote was that the coaching staff has sometimes had to remind certain players about their touch time and about like 0.5 basketball. That was another very obvious reference to Kuminga and Pajemski, who the stats do show just are on the ball, take longer to make decisions than the other Pat Spencer, Steph Curry, those guys bring the ball up. They're going to be having the higher dribble per touch stats, which they do, more touch time. Draymond Green has more touches than anyone, but his dribbles per touch are like under 2. Same with Moses Moody and Will Richard, which is relevant because those guys are getting starts now over Pajemski and Kuminga. The point is, the numbers aren't, and the eye test aren't showing Kuminga and Pajemski being selfish. So Dan, what I think this is like more of a personality thing. There's been reports throughout his career that Pajemski has a pretty outsized amount of confidence and is not shy about talking about how great he can be.
Can I interject for a second?
Mm-hmm.
When you have Joe Lacob calling him a future All-Star, it's probably he's kind of inflating or enabling that type of mindset then.
Good point. I think it exists in Pajemski just naturally, but you're right. And to build on that, who's been a bigger Kuminga backer than Joe Lacob? So in terms of like enabling or empowering that kind of mindset, it applies to both of them. To me, this isn't about the on-court stuff or outright selfishness or personal agenda stuff. I think if you're critical of Kuminga and Pajemski, Kuminga, again, like, he's playing more, scoring less this year. He started a bunch, has the highest turnover rate of his career, lowest steal rate. He's rebounding more. That's great. Pajemski's numbers, not that different, really, from last season. I think their limitations are just that. I think they're their limitations. I think, like, the things these guys have not been good at, quick decisions, spot-up shooting, like all this other stuff that are shortcomings, that's not born out of agenda stuff. It's born out of, like, they're just not good at those things, and that doesn't fit with the team. And then layered on top of that is, I think, the just kind of personalities, it may be overconfidence, maybe entitlement, call it what you want. That's the issue I think the veterans have with these guys. It's not selfishness per se. Does that resonate? Like, because to talk about it in terms of agendas, it makes it seem like these two guys are, bad actors. I don't think that's quite right. I think it's the veterans actually just like don't like these guys that much, and they don't care for their personalities, and they're annoyed by what they're not good at within the scheme of how they want to play.
Which I think it's easy to, and this gets conflated too much, is when people don't like how a player is playing, don't like their contract, don't like their style, is it gets connected to their overall humanity, to where Jonathan Kuminga is just selfish because he wants to get paid or he wants to be a star in this league, but he's also just not good at, inherently, he's not good at the read and react or the processing stuff.
Yep.
And by the way, I think what we also undersell collectively is generational gaps in the NBA. It's just, look at the age difference between these guys. The other thing I will say too is, when you're looking at specifically on the court, it does seem like there might be some I didn't know enough like plugged into what Brandon Pajemski thinks of himself or maybe how he's viewed around the Dubs. It felt like there was more of that with Kuminga, but maybe just because he was higher profile. When you look specifically on the court, I kind of feel like Brandon Pajemski is good at a lot of the things that the Dubs like to do. He's just maddeningly inconsistent. We say this about Kuminga, but he was inconsistent for the first few years of his career while it feels like playing his own brand of basketball. I don't view, and you've seen way more of Pajemski and the Warriors than I have, I don't view him as someone who is just forcing them to deviate from the script unless it's because, one, he's too inconsistent, or two, what I would say is they've kind of at points needed him to be someone who he's not. And it's just like similar with Jonathan Kuminga to where, well, if you want Jonathan Kuminga to be more plug and play than we saw at the beginning of this season, you're going to have to spell out to me how you plan on making that happen. And the final thing before I throw it to you is just, this, I guess, comes back to the generational disconnect. But if there's this inherent impatience because these guys, Draymond Green, Steph, Jimmy Butler, are kind of at the end of their primes, at the end of their careers, versus these guys who are at the beginning. And just when you look at the roles both of them have had, but more so Kuminga, when there is just the inconsistency of how they're used, or they haven't been able to get the, let's say, the amount of runway or the freedom to fail, the way that guys and maybe teams that don't have is soaring expectations immediately when they come in. I don't want to say that's done a disservice to them. I think there's being in a winning culture matters a great deal to development. I think that this is just what Draymond Green to me is saying. I'm not putting it on anyone, but I don't know that I look at these two youngsters specifically and say, well, like, yeah, they're upending the Warriors somehow, and it's within their control to stop it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to frame it. And I think maybe what that really means is the veterans who, by the way, like, it's Curry has been sick and missed a bunch of time and played poorly at a couple other times because he just wasn't healthy. He's had crazy turnover issues. Draymond has had just some wild
His
turnovers.
shoe company dropped him because he's been
it's
bad.
terrible,
Pods
right? What's he going to do? Is he going to be okay, do you think? So it's not as if the Warriors struggles entirely to Pajemski and Kuminga. That's ridiculous. That's just objectively untrue. What this feels like to me is the veterans are frustrated, and I think the real source of that frustration is that Kuminga and Pajemski specifically, and you kind of, as you said, will not, but like they just, not every player can do everything, right? There are player types, there are strengths and weaknesses. They can't do the things that the veterans really want them to do well enough. And I think that's creating frustration, and it's combining with some personality stuff, and it's coming out as like an agenda driven thing. Like, again, I don't see any like outward now so far, any outward like I'm frustrated, I want to play this way. It's just like Pajemski is not a quick decision maker. You're right, he's been inconsistent. His limitations are he cannot athletically beat players. He comes to 2-foot jump stops and picks up his dribble like just all the time and gets stuck, and possessions just go there to die. Kuminga processes slowly, has terrible hands. Like, they just have limitations. And I think that's been frustrating. So I think maybe the thing and by contrast, Moses Moody and Will Richard are just role players. And you've never heard Steve Kerr or the team say anything bad about either of them because they just shoot threes and try to make quick decisions and play defense to the best of their ability. And in some ways, like, because they don't have the appearance of like he can do more like Kuminga and Pajemski do, they're not quite held to the same standard. Like if Moody has a bad shooting night, it's like, oh, well, he tried. But if Pajemski has a bad shooting night or doesn't facilitate like they need him to, it's like, oh, this guy's terrible. You know, they're victims kind of their own apparent greater skill sets.
And it's not to downplay what we've seen since they've come into the league from Quentin Post and Will Richard, but when you're drafted in the 50s,
right?
The expectation baseline is just so inherently low that anything you're doing, even a Pat Spencer's, whoa, like this is great.
He did anything. That's awesome. Right. Like Quentin Post has done anything. Great. Will Richard, same thing. But it does kind of, it's easy to fall into the like, well, here's the Warriors and these vets again, just stunting the growth of young players because you got to play a certain way there. It's not really true. It's if you have a certain skill set and a certain mentality and you know how, quote unquote, know how to play, I think you're going to be fine. And like Moody and Richard and Post are good examples of that, albeit, I don't know, none of them have the ceiling of Podziemski or Kuminga, even though we're pretty low on those ceilings now relative to where we were. I think the spin it forward aspect that we probably got to get to is like Kuminga was always going to be traded, and now it seems much more likely that Podziemski might also, follow him out the door at the deadline this year, just because the Warriors are turning away from them already.
Right. But so I was going to ask to you what you think the longer term implications are of this. And like, what is it? If you're trading both of those guys, what are you targeting? Like, who is there a player that you're trying to consolidate into? Is it, by the way, you're limited in that technically too. If you don't want to touch your 3 veterans, the money that you can send out, you could still do some things, but you can't do these 4-for-1 trades because then what's left with your rotation?
Yeah. I mean, a lot depends on how much they get, I think, specifically out of Moody and Richard. Because you might say, well, we need some more 3-and-D wings to just throw out there with the 3 old guys, and that'll be good. But if those 2 guys are solid in that respect, then you are looking again. Secondary creation is just going to forever be a thing. Like someone who can do the stuff Podziemski can't, or that Kuminga can't. I don't know who that is. That's not a star. That's going to cost one of your costly vets, right? Kristaps Porzingis has kind of gotten bandied around. I don't know if the Hawks have any interest in that, but. Sure, that gives you kind of another Al Horford-esque option, I suppose. So that way you got 3 floor spacing centers if you count Post in there with Horford and KP. Like, I don't know what that trade looks like. I'm just more focused right now on. I think this is the closest I felt like to the Warriors have seen enough of both of these guys now to feel like not quite going to work here.
He has not been necessarily great to start the year, but are you still a Derek White guy?
Always forever going to be a Derek White guy. If you could get Derek White for Kuminga or Pods, I'm doing it 10 times out of 10.
I think it's going to take both, and there'd be other machinations. And that would be my guess, even with what is he shooting? His 2-point percentage is pretty low this year. But yeah, I think he's shooting Derek White on drives this year at 37%. I would probably still do it, but I'm not giving, like, if I was the Warriors, I would have given up everything for Derek White in the offseason, and now I'm sitting here just a little confused. Right. So, final question. Well, it's 2 separate questions. Will Kuminga be on the Warriors past the trade deadline, yay or nay?
No, can't be. I mean, if he's not, if he is, it's because, like, there's just nobody wants him, which is hard for me to believe. I think somebody's still going to think at that money with that team option, like, why not? Will
Pods still be on the Warriors after the trade deadline, yes or no?
I'm going to say, obviously more likely than Kuminga, but I'll put it at, let's just call it 50. Can I get away with saying 50-50? Which is like not what I would have said at the start of the year. I would have said like, 85% he's going to be on the team.
What would you put Kuminga's at?
There's like a 10% chance he's still on the team after the deadline.
Oh, wow, okay. All right. Let's get to our number 2 pick. I'm going to go with, all right, I'm going to go with this, Grant. The Nuggets bench is kind of a big deal. Now, they were impacted a little bit because they let the Clippers make a fake comeback the other night during Nikola Jokic's double nickel. I don't know if you saw any of that performance. Just my God.
Pretty good.
Nikola Jokic, this is going to be spicy, but I think that he's pretty good at basketball. However, this is the deepest team that the Nuggets have ever had. They are currently, Grant, they were number 1 before the Clippers game. That has now changed. They are 3rd in bench differential per 100 possessions. Only Toronto, and then, of course, Oklahoma City, because they just have everything, are in front of them at the moment. The degree to which this matters, if you go back and look during kind of the prime Jokic years, their bench differentials. In 24-25, they were 24th. In 23-24, they were 22nd. The title year, they were 29th. The year before that, they were 23rd. They have only had a bench that ranks in the top half of point differential 3 times since Nikola Jokic entered the league. And they've only had it inside the top 10 once, never anything inside the top 5. Now, what does help, of course, is that the Nuggets play a ton of minutes with a bunch of starters on the court. I think they have the largest share in the league of at least 3 starters on the court at all times. That matters, but they were doing things like that in previous years, and it wasn't working. And the fact that you now can look at and say, I was wrong about the Tim Hardaway Jr. edition. They just needed his volume and just short-term memory. Like, he's hitting them now, but like he's not going to shoot 46% from 3 forever. He will miss them and just continue to take them. And where you can see Cam Johnson kind of hesitating this year and missing a bunch of wide open threes, as Nuggets fans will tell you, some of them have been air balls. Tim Hardaway Jr. doesn't have that in his genes. Bruce Brown, just the familiarity with how the Nuggets want to play offensively, even though the personnel around him has shifted a little bit, huge. Peyton Watson, I think this has been the best defensive season of his career, still up and down on the offensive end, but that ends up being like just looking at this Nuggets team and thinking, oh, they go 8 reliable guys deep. When is the last time that we even thought we could say, 9? Jonas Valanciunas, I didn't even mention. They are winning, or they had until the Clippers game, won the minutes he played without Nikola Jokic on the court. You don't need to win those minutes, but to just have a heartbeat in those non-Nikola Jokic minutes, and just someone who you can either run things through. He can do some basic spot-up stuff. And again, I think part of this is Jamal Murray had that hot start, been a little up and down ever since. His passing just in the non-Jokic minutes, he's averaging more assists per 100 possessions without Jokic, I think, than he ever has before. So having the starters there to uplift some of these guys is a huge deal. But at the same time, like, we haven't been able to say that the Nuggets go even 7 reliable guys deep, in roughly forever. And now we can sit here and I think reasonably say 8. Like, you can stretch it to 9, but if you think, okay, Peyton Watson, Tim Hardaway, we don't like their baselines might swing a little bit more turbulently than everybody else's. Even if it's 7 or 8, that's just massive. And it's massive on the workload for Nikola Jokic more than anyone, because there are going to be, I would argue, fewer games like the one against the Clippers to where they feel the need, okay, we have to insert him back in the fourth quarter. This lead's getting a little bit. And that some of that might have been they wanted him to go for 60, but he has never operated like that. So I just can't imagine that factored into it too heavily.
I think one of the funniest stats about this is that Jokic's on-off differential is still plus 28.5, which is just like, so that's even for him, that's pretty high. And that's working off of a higher reserve baseline. Just absurd. I wonder, so I think I agree. I mean, I definitely agree with you that it does feel like there are more real players here down through 8, maybe 9, that are going to at least get you those break-even minutes or slightly better without Jokic in the game and without starters in the game more generally. Do you think, in what way is this meaningful? Is it meaningful in a seeding sense to where, okay, Denver might be able to get 1 or 2, probably not 1, maybe 2 in the West, and that gets you home court up through the conference finals, or up until the conference finals? Or is it this matters because of the lineups they'll be able to put in playoff games? Like, you know what I mean? Is it a regular season thing? Because the Nuggets' goals are what they are. They're trying to win a championship. So what does the depth really mean, assuming it's real?
Even if it's a regular season thing, I think that you're still like preserving Nikola Jokic specifically, or maybe even Aaron Gordon. Like, you're ensuring that these guys get more rest in games. Maybe some of them, when you're looking at a Jamal Murray, when you're looking at an Aaron Gordon, don't have to play in as many regular season games. If you're looking at the type of lineups they can throw out in the postseason, I think one of the biggest deals would be, let's just say that Cam Johnson doesn't ever normalize. I expect him to, but you could toggle and say, right, well, we have Tim Hardaway Jr., or we have Bruce Brown, or we have Peyton Watson. And it goes the same with Christian Brown, whose offense, okay, like, we know what he could do around the basket, but his shooting is going to be all over the place. There might be certain defensive matchups to where you say, you know what? Like, Peyton Watson, he can get around screens better. He's just slimmer than Christian Brown. So let's throw him in there and try that. So to have more option, and now I'm naming players that were already on the team, but Peyton Watson just giving you a higher defensive default maybe than he did, that's the type of stuff that's going to matter. But I think it just gives them more optionality in the playoffs to where we know 3 of these guys aren't going anywhere when it matters most on the floor. Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, and Nikola Jokic have to be in the game. And I think that you could maybe even elevate Christian Brown into that, or at least come pretty close. But I think now they have more ways to toggle with, let's say, the final two or even just the final spot in some of their most important playoff lineups. And the starting five, they want it to be the default. It should still be the default, and I expect that it will be good enough to be the default. But in the event it can't, in the event that there's a matchup where they don't think that that's going to work, they just have more choices at their disposal. And I think, by the way, having Bruce Brown and this version of Peyton Watson, I think it allows David Adelman to just try different things defensively as well. And I'm still kind of holding out hope. And look, this could matter in the playoffs if you go in against maybe Houston or OKC. I want to see more Jonas Valanciunas and Nikola Jokic together. I just want to see it. I think they've played last time I checked, it was 1 minute, and I haven't seen it. So
Valanciunas is averaging 25 and 14 per 36. So when he's out there, it's not for a long time, but he's doing stuff. He impacts the game every time he is in it.
There's value in being able to do that too, by the way, because we talk about this a lot with other players where it's hard for them to come in and get in a rhythm. But if Jonas Valanciunas can come in and play 12 to 15 minutes a game in these shorter blips and still just be Jonas Valanciunas or be effective, that's a bigger victory than it. It'd be, I guess, if you wanted to play him 20 plus minutes and that's how he gets his groove. It's just you can't do that because you have Jokic.
It's interesting that, I guess with the exception of Cam Johnson, because I thought Cam Johnson is we're going to see the best version of him because Jokic, and that's just what happens. But other than him, the Nuggets right now are very much playing to preseason expectations where it's Jokic will be great. He'll have to do a little less. He'll be more efficient than ever. And the bench is good now. And it's kind of that's where we are. That if you're feeling like you can't figure out the season and what's wrong with Orlando? Oh no, Atlanta, even though those have sort of normalized, but Denver's doing what we kind of thought Denver would do, which is a nice thing. I have a pick now. We got to talk about the weird experiment that is the Houston Rockets. So I kind of started formulating this watching the Rockets Bucks game. It's probably about a week ago now. It was a truly bizarre just thing to behold where all of Houston's exploitable weaknesses got exploited effectively. And it still kind of produced strengths, which is just, and what I mean by that is, so in the first half of that game, which Houston ended up winning, it felt like the Bucks were going to run away with this. Milwaukee's playing a ton of zone against big lineups for the Rockets that couldn't shoot. Reed Shepherd had some nice moments. By the way, your guy Reed Shepherd's looking pretty solid sometimes lately. I'm very excited for you.
You see him running some pick and rolls now? And
he has moments. He has stretches where it's that guy can do stuff. So great recovery from. I pronounced him dead probably 2 weeks ago. But so the Bucks are playing a ton of zone because the Rockets can't shoot. Turned the Rockets over a billion times in the first half of that game. And got a bunch of runouts, and the points off turnovers were way out of whack in Milwaukee's favor. The problem is it's really hard to box out in a zone. So in addition to the Rockets being just hell-bent on offensive rebounds all the time anyway, if you zone them, which theoretically you should, right? Because Amen Thompson, iffy shooter. Alperen Şengün shot it better, still don't believe in him. Steven Adams never going to shoot it. Tari Eason's open in the corner, great, we won that defensive possession. Just across the board, Durant's not going to shoot threes. So the zone makes sense, except you can't box them out. So Houston wins the rebounding battle of that game 50-27 and has 20 offensive rebounds. It's just the thing you should do against the Rockets plays into their hands in another way that can lose you the game. So just as a study in extremes, the Rockets are fascinating for some numbers. Obviously number one in offensive rebound rate, 40.6%, which is the difference between Houston and the number two, Utah Jazz, shout out Jazz, good job, fellas, in offensive rebounding rate is about the same as the difference between Utah and the number 16 team. So it's just it's absurd how much more the Rockets are successfully crashing the offensive glass. Steven Adams has a huge amount to do with that, biggest share of the credit, but just collectively, that's kind of what's working for the Rockets. We maybe knew that was coming when they were going to play so big. They're also number 27 in turnovers. They turn the ball over all the time. So this creates this bizarre possession battle, push and pull where, we're going to give you the ball, but when we shoot it, we're also going to get it again. So the possession battle is always going to be just unusual for them all season. They also never foul. They're number 1 in opponent free throw rate. The difference between them and Golden State at number 2 is like 3%, which is just enormous. They're 28th in transition frequency. Opponents are 8th in transition frequency. So the games are slow. It's just, this is a weird ass team, and all the stuff that makes them seem weak can be turned into strengths. So I don't really have a point about this other than Houston is unlike any team I could ever remember. And I don't know, like, are we going to get into the postseason and think like, okay, they turn it over too much, so they can't win. Or it's like, it doesn't matter. They turn it over so much because they get a million offensive rebounds, and that just negates the giveaways. And you can't zone them because they can't shoot because they'll get more offensive rebound. I don't know. We haven't really seen this before.
Do you think, I was going to ask this, that the way they're currently constructed, it will be able to work in the playoffs to where this style, especially on offense, is going to hold up? And we've seen them make some changes to where, okay, Josh Okogie is starting now, and he's kind of just the extension of them playing with another, like, he just has a big man skill set on offense, essentially.
Right. I think it's most likely that we get into, it might not be a first round problem. Let's call it the conference semifinals is when teams are good enough at limiting the offensive rebounds to where the shooting limitations and the turnovers make it so just they're like Houston's effective field goal percentage is the worst of any team in the playoffs, right? And like their offense is okay, but not good enough because the second chance stuff isn't sufficient to paper over the other issues. That's my guess. But again, the extremity of the offensive rebounding is kind of just like, it makes me question that. But my gut, don't you think, like, you can't have such an obvious limitation and get real deep in the playoffs? That's where I'm ultimately at. But like, I don't know. I've never seen a team play like this, so there's not really a good precedent for it.
Well, what would be the biggest concern? Is it just that you're thinking the offensive rebounding will fall by the wayside in the playoffs? The teams will be able to take that away?
It's not going to go away. It'll be a strength, but it'll be limited enough to where the other problems become too big for the offensive rebounding to cover up. That you know what I mean? Like if you have these shooting and playmaking limitations, I think if once you reach a level of the postseason where the quality of opponent is high enough, they will exploit those and make you lose. And that's not, maybe the Rockets make a trade and suddenly they're not so reliant on those quirky things that they're good at. But that's how this goes, right? I think if you're trying to make a bet on it, it's that Houston has a couple of weaknesses that good teams are going to figure out how to exploit.
Yeah, because even now they do have, and this is like one of the biggest, Alperen Şengün should be on the MVP ballot type numbers, would be their 7th in first chance offense. So like they're doing all this offensive rebound stuff. When you filter that out, they're still 7th in offensive efficiency. A lot of that is though, so the new
they shot the
starting
shit out of the ball from three,
right,
which again is like you're getting zoned. They're daring you to do that. So
and when you look at their starting lineup, just as like a specific example, which has killed opponents, how many above average shooters would you be prepared to guarantee? And it would be the same. It's the same answer if Steven Adams was in the lineup, just to be honest. But it should be 1.
Right.
You find yourself now, okay, if we trust Alperen Şengün, it's 2. That's going to be iffy. At the same time, though, if Reed Shepard, I know I'm going to make this about Reed Shepard. If he continues to progress and gives you a curveball to where maybe you have to move away from some of your base lineups in the playoffs, but if he's just more seasoned, more ready, that might give them a different type of offensive audible. That would be, and like him and Şengün kind of have like a nice connection too. So it's weird that we were on the fence of the Rockets as contenders this season without a trade once Fred VanVleet went down. But I kind of buy the science experiment that we're seeing, even if I recognize everything you said is right, to where they're probably going to have to find different ways to win basketball games, or I should say score the basketball in the playoffs.
I think to their credit, this is the best you can, this is the right way to play with this collection of players, right? It's extreme, but you have an extreme roster. So you got to try different stuff, and you're going to be subjected to like extreme defensive coverages, and they've done the best they can, I think, but beaten expectations certainly for dealing with what we sort of maybe thought was coming, like all the zone and the turnover issues and all that stuff. Like, I think if anything, you definitely credit the Rockets for playing in a way that makes the most sense for the players they have, even if it means conceding, like we're going to look pretty extreme.
I'll take the next pick because it is my pick. I kind of want to talk about the Pistons, but I feel like you'll talk about the Pistons. So I'm going to talk about the Phoenix Suns.
Here we go.
Are they actually good? There is some noise to their performance. As we sit here, they are 8-5, 7-4. What is it?
8-5.
8-5. They've had, per ESPN's BPI index, the easiest schedule in the league. They've gotten to play the Clippers 3 times. That's good for teams. There's some things about this roster I thought they would maybe play faster, but if you're going to build everything around Devin Booker, I probably just need to be resigned to the fact that you're always going to be a little bit more deliberate with how you operate. Top 10 in offense and defense. The Spurs are the only team above 500 that they've beaten. I don't know that I care, just because you declared Reed Shepherd dead. I had the Suns DOA entering this season, and now we're looking at this. I've never been a Mark Williams guy. Mark Williams is turning me into a Mark Williams guy this season. The teams are getting to the rim so much less when he's on the court. He's actually been on the perimeter okay defensively. You don't have to do anything fancy with him on the offensive end. He's just going to be able to clean up plays or finish at the basket. He's been an excellent fit. The fact that they're not this god-awful rebounding team when they just feel so small, they're 8th in offensive rebounding and 16th in defense, so not great. But when you haven't really gotten anything out of the spectator, you're not playing Malawach. Nick Richards not really playing. Oso Gadara hasn't been very good until his previous game. Maybe he showed signs of life. Yeah, he's not very good, and then he posts a plus 52 in their win over the Pacers.
I'm forever in on Iguodala. He's you know what? He's moved into the Gabe Vincent tier of like 4 years ago, where I only ever see his good games, and I'm just like, he's great. He should play more.
He's a smart player, and so you have hopeful there. There's like a depth to this team now. Royce O'Neal, I think I've said this on the podcast before, probably just one of the most underrated players of the past decade, to where it just comes in. He's going to knock down his threes, make the decisions you need, not going to cannibalize anything on offense, play his role on defense. And then Grayson Allen he's having one of those seasons where it's, is his contract now a steal? Or it's like when he was having this season, it's, the Suns have to extend him. He's done great work from beyond the arc. He's done excellent work on his drives. So, like, having that as a funnel to your offense, this team, Grant, I don't look at them and say there's so much time left in the season, but you're looking at the performances that they're getting out of these plays. Even just Ryan Dunn is going to be their best shot blocker. Their starting 5 is kind of, would you have expected, so when you look at who they're starting right now, would you have expected Ryan Dunn to have been in there? Or do you think that O'Neal, Booker, Allen, Williams, Brooks always would have been your default at full strength?
No, I think it would have made sense to try Dunn and Brooks together. I think that was discussed, right? Especially if it was going to be Booker and Green in the backcourt. And Green, but we should mention, as basically not played because he had a hamstring and then he played and then he re-aggravated it. I mean, Allen is the one that I don't think anybody projected as a starter, because where would you fit him? But other than Booker, he's just been pretty obviously their best player. Just because of this, not just the shooting. The shooting's kind of a given with him, but the volume's higher than it's ever been, and the inside the arc game looks better, on pace for a career high in assists, and just has more on-ball stuff than maybe he got an opportunity to show, or credit him too, probably, for just realizing hey, we don't have a point guard. I better brush up on my creation skills. He's been really great. I think the most interesting thing to me, and I'm just telling on myself, but I really do think I, and probably a lot of people, let just the debacle of ownership affect how we look at the group that is going to take the floor this season, right? Because it's almost if this set of knuckleheads put this personnel together, this personnel sucks. It has to, right? Because everything that this ownership group and this management group has done makes no sense. All they do is hire Michigan State people. They can't figure out how to make trades. They don't evaluate talent very well. You got to have Mark Williams. Is that I think I just let the total lack of faith in the organization make it so I couldn't look at the collection of talent clearly. And that even extended to like, oh, good idea. Let's go without a point guard. I'm sure that'll go great. And it's like, well, it's not a given that it won't work. Yeah. Well, first of all, I saw him coming. And I think that extends to Jordan Ott too. It's like, well, so if Jordan Ott was hired by these people, he's unqualified or you know what I mean? Like, and that's just objectively false. The Suns are playing hard. They're moving the ball. Like taking threes. They're taking three. Like they're doing a lot of the smart stuff that a good coach would have you do. And I just didn't give enough of a chance to any of that good stuff happening because of Ishbia and because of the way that this team has been run. So mea culpa on that front. Also, the schedule sucks, and we'll probably walk back most of this in 2 weeks.
I will say, after I give Ott credit for moving away from and they've had scattershot availability, getting back to that starting lineup thing real quick, getting away from, okay, they were trying Dunn in there, and now it's like now their current starting five has an offensive rating of 131. And the sample size is relative to this season is not all that small. Now, we have to see what it looks like when they're going to go up against a tougher schedule, but if you were going to look at the Suns and even their schedule through the first 13 games of the season, would you have given them an 8-5 record? Because I wouldn't have given them that win over San Antonio. I wouldn't have given them either of those wins over the Clippers. And honestly, I probably would have expected them to lose. We weren't super high on Dallas relative to the consensus or the Pacers. We both hit their under, but those two teams have been way worse than a lot of people were expecting. Yeah. So kudos to this. You're right, though. We probably let just the stain of the previous few seasons. And it's kind of hard to take an organization seriously when one of the most emphatic rebukes that your owner, Matt Ishbia, gave is when he saw preseason predictions, comes out and said, yeah, well, they thought we were going to be good last year, so what did they know?
Showed you.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Dylan Brooks wearing sunglasses inside so often? Every time he's on the bench, he's got sunglasses on. What are your thoughts?
I like this team right now, so I'm going to allow it. They're kind of it's where I was okay with Dylan Brooks's vibe early on in that Grizzlies run before he just became grating. Yeah. He's not grating on me with the Suns yet, but as a general rule, anyone who wears sunglasses indoors, I feel like they kind of suck as a human being. Is that?
I don't trust it. I don't trust it
either. Yeah.
What are you hiding? All right.
Unless it's a costume, or is it a bit? Like Jimmy Butler coming in emo, then that's fine. But I don't think
he does bits. I think Dylan Brooks kind of is doing bits, except like he's not in on them. So it's like, so I don't know. He's a fascinating character. I don't support indoor sunglass wearing. I want to be on the record.
You are on the record, and I'm with you there.
And I'm on the clock also. So I'm gonna you guessed correctly. I would like to talk about the Detroit Pistons' paint dominance. Now,
could you at least call them by their name? The first place Detroit Pistons.
The East leading, is it not 8-9 game winning streak or whatever it is? The unbeatable of late Detroit Pistons. The Cade Cunningham will shoot as often as he needs to win you the game. And like, I don't want to get into that game. That was just a wild. I still can't process taking that many shots and missing that many and still having a positive plus minus when you do that.
But that's my whole thing is people, first of all, you want the halcyon days of like when Kobe went at it alone, and then we get it. I'm not saying you specifically. You get it, and now you're complaining about it. Yeah. It's sort of, you have nostalgia until you witness it, but I just want to point out before you carry on, because this is one of my Pistons points, Cade's efficiency is relatively average, not good. The workload he is shouldering in that game and overall is categorically insane. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and this player is coming. Terrence Shannon Jr. apparently are the only players that are getting more of their buckets unassisted. This is just not having Dennis Schroeder, like going from Caris LeVert's been a little bit better lately, but not having Jaden Ivey healthy there. I just don't think people are appreciating, especially how banged up they are. I'm not giving him yes, there are players who would be more efficient in this role, but like you go from a guy who wasn't really taking self-created threes to now that's basically all he can take with this roster. That was my Cade Cunningham. I just find it funny.
No, I was being tongue-in-cheek. I mean, like, I think if my main takeaway from that was like, that's a physical feat. Like, that's an incredible achievement that he was able to do that. And I don't mean that like in a negative, like smart ass way. It's like, that's amazing. And that ties into like, I'm not going to talk about Cade that much just because He's been spectacular. I think you can point to some of the efficiency stuff, but like, I think he's better now than he was last year and what was a breakout year. I think he's
Correct.
doing what he has to do on this team right now because of its shortcomings in the playmaking department. I think like he actually has to do this. And so I'm not going to ding him for inefficiency.
Well, since we're just going to wrap up, I just have one question. This is, I don't even expect a response. How many primary ball handlers or primary offensive engines are as good defensively as Cade Cunningham right now?
Oh man. I mean, let's just go through like Shea doesn't play quite the same position.
Right.
Maybe. Cade's bigger. And so like,
can do low man stuff. Yeah.
Can do low man stuff for sure. Luka, no, not close. Like maybe you would have pointed to like Tatum.
Nico.
Like healthy Tatum maybe would have been like Tatum. I think healthy is a better defender, but I think Cade's probably like capable of at least as much offensively. I don't know. That's the only name that comes to mind. Like all the other, like Anthony Edwards, no. Steph, no. Like I don't know how far down the list we have to go. Am I missing somebody?
There has to be, like, he's in the, if we were to do a rankings, if he's lower than third, I would probably be pretty, because it's just, who else is there? There would be Tatum, who's not playing right now,
right.
and Shea, and I think maybe Edwards, but just like Cade Cunningham, if you're splitting hairs between them, it's, well, Cade Cunningham's the better passer, but just looking at who can carry his workload offensively and then do what he's doing defensively, there's maybe two other guys that you would trust to do that, and that am I being overly generous there? That was just something I'd been thinking about.
Like peak Jimmy Butler, something like that, or I mean, even then, I don't know.
You're right. It is. Yeah,
it's a short list.
It's honestly, Tatum is probably the best comp just because their game, when you look at, we want more from the rim, it's like you say the same stuff about Cade. Cade's the better passer, though. But yeah, I think that needs to be, this is not a PSA to you, really, I'm just musing. I think that also needs to be kind of factored in when we're looking at what's happening on the offensive end as well.
So when does he start getting the label of the best two-way player in the, you know what I mean? We like to throw that out for the guy that we all agree is not the best player in the league, but the best. Oh, he's just you can hear it on the broadcast now. It's like, Doris, I think he's the best two-way player in the league. Is there anyone else in that? Like, that's coming, right? Because that's how we'll have to discuss him.
Don't you think they normally gravitate towards people in that who are more inherently, their raw efficiency is better on offense, so that might keep him out of it?
I don't know. It's just, that's such a weird designation, though. It never goes to the actual best player in the league, but it's the one that like is very good, but also is very good on defense. Like even like J-Dub gets a lot of like, oh, that's such a phenomenal two-way player. You know,
when did we start? Was this the Kawhi effect? Is that the first time you kind of remember?
That's a great pull. Yeah, maybe right. Because if he's not going to win MVP, we have to acknowledge he's the best two-way guy in the league. Yeah. Right. We weren't going to talk about Cade Cunningham. No, that's what this whole thing is. I just want to talk about the Pistons' points in the paint stuff because it's bonkers. They score the most points in the paint per game, and they allow the fourth fewest. They are allowing bottom 10 rim attempt frequency and accuracy. When Isaiah Stewart is in the game, it gets impossible to score around the basket. Opponents have an 11.1% decline in rim accuracy when he plays. That's a 93rd percentile figure among bigs. And they lose 9.3% off of their attempt frequency. That's a 99th percentile. The Pistons also, this is what I want from my Pistons, by the way. They allow the highest opponent free throw rate in the league, which means they foul all the time, which is just like, yeah, that's what you got to do. If you're a true Pistons team, whether it's like 1990 or 2004, you got to be physical. And they are that. So I'm wondering, as a result of this, like just before I get to what I'm wondering, the Cade plus just dominate the rim is a recipe I'm very much in favor of, and I would like to see more. I think that's really an interesting way for them to play in much the same way as the Rockets. Like, given the personnel they have, which is to say lacking a secondary creator that can really give you dynamic offense, I think this is how the Pistons should play. Like, they kill it inside with Jalen Duren and Stewart, sometimes together, and Cade like just does enough to create offense, and that's the recipe. I'm wondering, Dan, if between this team, between the Rockets, between like, I don't know, say the Thunder, who are not defined by 3-point shooting, are we like, can we not quite close the book on the the pace and space 3-point era thing, because some other teams are still doing that to even crazier degrees. But like, is the rim and the paint now, are we back to where like that's what we talk about when like if you're a good team, you have to dominate this area? Or at least if you're not a team with Steph Curry and or like a Celtics level 3-point attempt rate, is this where we're back to? We're going to get rebounds, we're going to deny attempts and accuracy inside, and that's going to get us really far if we can't do the other stuff.
I think we might be back, but doesn't it feel, one, this is definitely a response to some of the team builds that squads were championing and still are to some extent. But don't you also feel that there's just, I know, although I haven't heard much talk about the NBA being too homogenous now, but this also feels like there's more variability just in the way teams are playing. Because even if you look at, let's use Detroit and Houston, who there's a lot of similar analogs there. Their offenses don't, their defenses, the way they're getting their offensive rebounds don't necessarily always look the same. So yes, I like offensive rebounding is back. That's been established over the past few years. And we like the next market efficiency, what you're saying about the rim stuff, like sure, that's up, but it just feels like maybe it's because there are quicker responses to things that are happening. It feels on a night to night basis for me, I just feel like there's more variability in the ways, because you look at some teams, the way they're pressing on defense, some teams, the Blazers deciding like we basically need to begin possessions like past half court when we're running the ball somehow. There's so many different things happening. It makes, I will say, just selfishly, because I only care about me, it makes my job way harder. But it's also just I don't feel the experience is the same basically across like really any matchup anymore.
I think it's exciting because all this stuff, all these different styles, and I agree. Just like watch a Heat game or a Blazers game and then watch like a Rockets game. And it's like, this is not the same sport, for long stretches that these two teams are playing. But like all of this stuff is born out of, some of it's copycat. Everyone cites the Pacers and the, just how they played as the impetus for like Memphis last year, I guess. And Miami and some other teams that are playing similarly. But like everyone's just looking for exploitable market inefficiencies, and it turns out there's more than one. You can, if depending on your personnel, hey, you know what, it would be insane if the Rockets tried to play like the Heat, right? Or it would be insane if the Blazers tried to play like the Pistons. Like there's just, so I think teams are obviously getting smarter, like on balance in terms of figuring out what the market inefficiencies are and how can we like not cheat but like exploit, like how do we maximize these advantages. But then the next step is like realizing what kind of personnel you have and then choosing a particular inefficiency to try to capitalize on. And that's just what makes for tons of variety, because no two rosters are the same. And the smarter teams get about looking at like, all right, where are we going to have some marginal gains, or where can we game it just based on who we have? That's pretty cool. And that's creating, I think, maybe like, I don't know, it's hyperbolic, but like in terms of breadth of styles, I can't remember the last time we had so many different, like, just types of teams to try to analyze. And you're right, it does make it harder to keep up with everybody.
And something had been, now that you asked that question, you gave your response. So the Duren Stewart minutes, to bring this back to the Pistons, the Pistons are a plus 25 in those minutes. Their net rating is insane. You were mentioning the rim stuff. The average team, Grant, takes 31.5% of their shots at the rim. The average team shoots 67.2% at the rim. When Duren and Stewart are on the court, opponents are taking 15.3% of their shots at the rim. And they're shooting 45.8%. That is nuts. But what I wanted to ask you, like coming off of that, do you get to a point where is this deliberate this is like more of an NBA wide question, or does one kind of beget the other to where, well, if we're going to play Duren and Stewart together as an example, or maybe they're looking at it through the lens of, well, if we were going to have Thompson and Duren together on the floor, let's just throw out another non-shooter in Isaiah Stewart and try and do more to either one, attack the rim on the other side, or in the Pistons case, to wall it off even more. Do you think it's more of a conscious decision to say, hey, because it feels like if you're going to go dual big, or once you have two non-shooters on the floor, I feel like I'm seeing more teams kind of decide, well, like, why not just put a third non?
Like,
we're not going to be afraid to put a third. Yeah.
Is
it a fuck it response, or is it a deliberate response to say this is what we're going to try?
Right. That's really interesting, because normally you'd say, well, if you're going to have Duran alone, you can't even play Thompson. Like or let alone Holland. You got to have, you need shooters everywhere. If you have one non-spacer, would be like conventional wisdom, right? Over the last however many years, I think you're right. I think it's like, well, we can try to balance this deficiency, or we can just turn it into a strength by making the other team have to play different guys to compensate or to like account for what we're going to do, which is to just have more non-spacing, offensive rebounding, physical forces in the game. That's really interesting. Again, and there's no way to sort of vet this theory until we get there. I wonder what happens in the playoffs when you have more prepared, theoretically better, smarter opponents that will say, okay, you can put all these big guys out there and sacrifice your spacing. We'll capitalize on it this way and make it so you can't get away with it. Or, I mean, it'll be case by case probably, right? Because there will be teams that can, like a Houston comes to mind as potentially, and maybe Detroit's another, that can just, they don't care about conventional skill set balance, and they'll just force, who's going to force who to adjust? That's always the classic playoff question. Now we just have some more extremes to kind of throw into that mix.
Now, do we think, you kind of mentioned this about, we were talking about it with the Rockets, this is I don't trust their offense in a playoff context yet. If Jaden Ivey comes back, maybe, but there's just so many questions there. Is this, as currently constructed, would you call the Pistons legitimate contenders in the East? Are they one player short? Can you please explain to the kids at home why no, they are not a good Anthony Davis trade destination? I've seen them mentioned
That's ridiculous.
Entirely too much. I think we even, Mort and I might have even brought them up in the Nico, but I remember, I hope I said, let's just keep, they just don't make a ton, but I've seen them mentioned as just, I know they need to make a move, but like Anthony Davis is not a 4. It seems like they need more offensive generation alongside Cade, whether you want that in the form of another guard or is it a combo 3-4. Larry Markkanen's the name that's going to get mentioned to no end, but I think I don't want to see them go too all in, but they're good enough to where it's, I don't know, would you call player X the finishing piece, but
yeah,
I could say they need to be fairly aggressive. It's fine to let this play out. Maybe you continue to get better and you're looking offensively and maybe it all clicks in the playoffs, but that would be the move, is you need to go after someone who is going to improve your offense, both being able to play off Cade and then in some of those non-Cade minutes, which they're winning right now, but not offensively.
I think if you sort of let it ride as the Pistons and you don't go out and try to find the secondary creator you might want or a Markkanen type to space the floor, you're really putting all your eggs in the Jalen Duren basket, because him as a short roll passer and as it's like a sneakily more dangerous isolating against opposing bigs and setting teammates up kind of threat. You're really relying on him a lot, and to a lesser extent Ivy once he's healthy, but because that's what teams will do, right? They'll put 2 on the ball when Cade has it, force it out of his hands. The outlet will probably be Duren, and he'll be going downhill, hopefully in a 4-on-3. And it's like, how many plays can Jalen Duren make against a playoff defense over and over and over? I mean, he'll do better than most, right? Like he has real chops in that role. Can you can you make a conference finals doing that? That's hard for me to believe. Maybe the answer is yes, if you can sustain all of your other like crazy dominant traits, the paint stuff, the rim protection. But on balance, that's a lot to put on his plate, right? Hey, Jalen Duren, you have to save our offense in a playoff series. Like that's pretty tough.
They're also built weird in the sense that I know they have the Tobias Harris salary, but if we were to say, should they be a Michael Porter Jr. team? Because if he came in here, he'd probably shoot 1,000,000,000% from 3, not giving you a ton of creation. But you only want to get there using salary. You don't, like, that's not a player and so to get there using salary, are you giving up both Tobias Harris and who you're not giving up Isaiah Stewart? Are you going to give up Karis LeVert? And that you have Duncan Robinson. Is that worth it? So they're almost, if they're going to make a move, they could make smaller moves. I want to be clear, but it almost has to be kind of an under the radar move to keep in theme with this podcast draft, or the Pistons really went for it. Like they would be, I don't know what's going on in Memphis, and it seems like they're more married to him than anybody else, but like they'd be a fun Jaren Jackson Jr. team if he became available.
I mean, I don't know. I like the Stewart and Duren combo so much that I just One, give me healthy Jaden Ivey that picks up exactly where he left off last year. That'd be the best case. You don't have to give anything up. He just joins the team. Two, give me someone that can do what Ivey's supposed to do, but better. Like in that, you need the secondary guy, ideally at the other backcourt spot. I think to really to shore up that weakness. I think and take something off Cade's plate.
What about Peyton Pritchard? If you get him from the Celtics, that'd be an interesting one, right?
I mean, man, just you throw him 30 feet from the basket too, and just be like, guess what? We're going to dominate the rim, and you have to space out to guard this guy because he will shoot it from here.
It's my pick now, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go talk about your Portland Trailblazers. I'm giving you the Portland Trailblazers. You're welcome. We already talked about on this podcast how fast that they like to play. The speed with which they're playing is insane, but I don't necessarily want to focus on that to begin. They are not afraid to play small, and I would argue that they might even prefer it at this point. They have played, Grant, 1,136 possessions on the season as we record this. Nearly one quarter of those possessions have come without a center on the floor. And when your centers are Young Hansen, not really playing, Young Handsome, sorry, I mispronounced his name, Donovan Clingan, Robert Williams III, and Wap Reith, it's not like you don't have centers that you, in theory, want to play. I think because you have Drew Holiday, Danny Avdia, Tamani Kamara, Jeremy Grant, it's almost forcing them to, like, we just named how many of their best players. And we don't really, with Scoot Henderson injured and Damian Lillard injured, we don't have that traditional guard. We're going to lean in to all of, like, this non-center looks, and it's a non-point guard look. Their lineup, their most used lineup in this situation has been Avdia, Holiday, Sharp, Kamara, Jeremy Grant. That lineup, I just want to say, is fun as hell every time I've seen it. 87 lineups, Grant, have logged at least 25 minutes on the season. The offensive rating of those five is the fourth highest, and it's at 142.1. That is insanity. Their average first chance offensive possession is 11.99 seconds long. That would rank first in the NBA, and I think Portland's either second or third overall. That would rank first in the NBA by a light year. They are so fast. They've even sprinkled in some Chris Murray for Shaden Sharp in that type of a lineup. I love it. And it might, lead to some questions about the Robert Williams III and some of the minutes we've seen. Very good. You still kind of have hope. Like Donovan Clingan, fine. We could get into, well, if this is their best version of themselves as this lineup, yeah, it's kind of cool, but what does that say about their big man rotation? Yeah. I don't really care. I just love it. Like, they are frenetic. Jeremy Grant having a good year. Drew Holiday's giving them some steadiness. They could, look, some of that game against the Magic was an acid trip down the stretch where Paolo Banchero made like 8 trillion mistakes and had a couple heroics too. You look at them sometimes offensively and say, yeah, they really need someone other than Drew Holiday or Denny Avdia to organize this. But they are fun. They're frenetic. They're fast and furious, and they're kind of good. I don't know where they're going to land in the larger landscape of the West. They're kind of just floating around just above 500. But when you look at, okay, Damian Lillard was never going to play this season, but you look at an injury to Scoot, you look at some of the moments that Shaden Sharp has had this year, to be in the top 8 in the Western Conference this far into it, like, that's, I would call that an accomplishment. And to be just 6-3 against the Western Conference overall, also kind of another big deal.
I think this is just a perfect kind of next team to talk about because it's an example of what we spent most of the time on Detroit discussing of. This team has a style it wants to play, and it's making a choice to play the players that fit into that style. And it's not like, I guess it's based on the numbers that you threw out there, and I've, some others, like they're plus, I think this might be a day old. I don't know if it accounts for their last game. They're plus 26.6 with Grant in Klingen's spot as a starter there, or not a starter, but like but they're plus 2.6 with Holiday, Sharp, Kamara, Avdia, and Klingen. And the differences are what you'd expect, like the offensive efficiency, the pace off the charts with Grant at center, with Klingen, but that smaller, faster group, they don't defend the rim. Their defense overall is not very good, and they give up a ton of offensive rebounds. You put Klingen in there, you get what you expect. They do defend the rim. The defense is pretty good, and they get a bunch of offensive rebounds. They play slower. Like, there are a lot of situations where I guess you'd call it conventional wisdom or this like a preference for like balance, would have the Blazers going most of the time with that clinging group, right? Because it's like, well, we've got our bases covered here, right? But putting Grant in there and playing without a center allows them to kind of do the stuff they want to do stylistically, which is be fast and disruptive and run and not really offensive rebound or defend the rim so well. I think it's just cool that they're choosing that one a lot, you know? And this is a total, like, what's the Paul Rudd meme of like, look at us now. Because what was the whole thing about Portland? It's like they have too many centers. They just with DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams and Klingon, like you can't play all these guys together. And now they're just like, we still have too many, and we just have decided that we don't always like to play one. Which is like, that's great. I think again, it's an example of like, there's no one way to do this, and the Blazers are like choosing their way in very often.
They've been a lot more fun than because we always talk about this team as they just have a lot of dudes and they can be a good watch. But the way they're playing now is just they've been way more of an enjoyable watch, even when things are going wrong for me, than I just could have bet on. And I still don't have a great feel for like what is the end game or what is the direction here, but it's just so fun that you kind of have to live in the moment with it. And there's the Shaedon Sharpe extension. That's probably going to end up being more team friendly than not. You have a lot of these guys under contract. I've seen a lot of people say sell high on Jeremy Grant. I don't know what that even looks like at this. I don't think a team is going to come in and give you a ton for Jeremy Grant right now. I'm not too, I'm probably guilty of not living in the moment enough. When we go look at teams, you're always kind of looking, well, what is next? We talk about the Pistons to where it's, do they need to do anything else to uphold what they're doing right now? The Blazers are the quintessential just enjoy this, right? Like, we don't like the Scoot stuff, the Damian Lillard stuff. What's going to happen with this team? There's some of their older guys. Is that you're going to want to get more out of Klingon offensively for sure at some point, and we have to see what Young Handsome's going to look like in a more extensive role. You would think. I don't care. I'm just going to enjoy this, right? Like, the fact that like Chris, and maybe it just kind of comes along, like Chris Murray, not really a factor for the first 2 seasons of his career, and then just like coming in, they're playing him a little bit more now. This is a really fun team, and the fact that there's substance to it, I think, is even cooler.
Do you think, I'll get the year wrong, but like, do you think 2017 called the Blazers and said like, hey, you know, Jeremy Grant, he's really good as a small ball center. You're not going to believe it because all the stuff in between now and the future will suggest he's like a primary scoring option. Just try it. Trust us. And the Blazers were like, okay. And like, hey, look, Jeremy Grant's a really good small ball center. The Thunder could have told you that. Maybe who else? The Nuggets maybe could have told you that. Was it 2017? I'm going to have to look that up at some point. How long ago it was that was Jeremy Grant's role.
Or we all wanted to see him in more of it. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the thing he did for at least a year. I'm mostly sure that's right. Let's move on. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say really quickly, do you think that this trend is something that holds or is sustainable? Not even the results, but just leaning that, and we're talking about 25% of their possessions, but 25% of your possessions with no center on the court's a big deal. Do you see that holding?
For them specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? It's working. Like, it's the best way for them to win at the moment. I think like maybe they're actually no. I think it is sustainable because I like their perimeter defenders so much that's the type of group that can, coupled with the pace, can help you just get away with not having a big guy out there. I think that's very. I mean, what I would love to see is more of them against the teams that play completely opposite styles. Like, let's get a Houston-Portland game. That'd be fun.
Who do you think adjusts more?
I bet Portland does. I think you just like if the Rockets are getting 70% of offensive rebounds, like you're gonna have to do something.
I hope Tiago Splitter won't do that. I hope he'll just be obstinate and he'll either play with only one big or no bigs at all. Could you imagine if you do get an Adam Şengün, Smith, Durant, Thompson lineup versus the Blazers small ball lineup? Would be so insane.
I would watch that game. I'll tell you that. All right. I would like to next select the Charlotte Hornets. Unbelievable. Although like we'll get to it. The rookies have been awesome. And it's deeply ironic that I'm choosing this category, and the rookie that I was like, you know, who's going to be good? Liam McNeely. And he is the 4th best rookie on the team so far.
He has decidedly not been good.
No. I was wrong there so far.
Yeah.
Everybody else in their first year has been really good. So we're talking chiefly about Concaniple. basically as advertised plus, right? Like the shooting, super legit on movement shooter, not just like he'll catch it and make it on a standstill. He understands how to drift to space, where to be to create passing angles so he can get catch and shoot stuff. He moves great off the ball to create, like kind of Duncan Robinson-y type of old school Duncan Robinson kind of attempts, and is good as a driver despite not being that athletic. Like he's what your highest expectations would have been, I think, for Knipple. So he's delivering. Ryan Kalkbrenner, okay, so I guess Charlotte's biggest weakness is not a center and rim protection, because
between him and Diabate, right?
Yeah, it's just like, all right, well, he's going to shoot 80% and get 2 blocks a game. We're good. Like that's sufficient, right? Now Charlotte's not a good team, but it's not like the Pelicans, for example. That center situation is playing out how we expected. The Hornets are not in that same tier in terms of just totally bereft of options because of Kalkbrenner. Sion James is probably the one I'm most skeptical of because he leads the league in 3-point shooting at like just under 60%, but good defender, has started, I think, like 6 times in 11 games so far. If he's going to make threes, he's going to play just because of his energy and his defense. So like, is Charlotte, despite LaMelo missing more time with an ankle and Brandon Miller having the shoulder, like, I don't know. Everything we keep seeing from Charlotte is like, I kind of trust this management group. I think they kind of understand what they're doing. It's just these little hits up and down. They keep stacking them up.
Yeah, Colin Sexton's been good too. That was a great pickup for them. And the other thing I'll add is just Kalkbrenner, excellent hands on the defensive end as well. Opponents are shooting 9.2 percentage points worse when challenged by him inside 6 feet. And the Sion James thing, the efficiency isn't going to hold, but I wonder what might actually do him in more is that's just someone who's reluctant to even take a shot. It really feels like there was the one game
17 of 29, so he's not like firing them off.
I don't remember who they were playing. There was one game where he didn't get his first field goal attempt until he was in minute 24 or something. And it's the defensive energy is just absurd. And the way that you could move him around and you look at kind of the people that he has guarded this season, but you're going to need something out of him on offense. As of right now, if he's going to just be hyper efficient and only take 5 shots a game, then hey, like more power to him. I don't know, Grant. I think you can trust the front office to believe they're going to make the right decision, but and we're going to talk about this in a future episode more at length, but they're also kind of at a disadvantage to where, in theory, your 2 most important players in the building are not playing right now and have not played a ton of time together. So how do you evaluate these guys in that context? But what I will say, so Con Knipple, been on fire since LaMelo Ball has been out, but all the stuff that you mentioned, it's almost like they run the offense through him without him being ball dominant. And so that's just someone who's going to fit alongside everyone. And he's just the assists he get, a lot of swing passes. He could throw some sprays on his drives. And the fact that he is this quick decision maker, or even when his buckets that require dribbles just don't feel like they're taking a ton of time, and he can do some stuff like get to the mid-range. I just look at him as LaMelo and Brandon Miller, just Brandon Miller, just LaMelo. It doesn't matter. He is going to fit.
He's purely additive. He's that kind of offensive player so far. Just like there's never a situation where it's like, well, Knipple's out there, so it's going to mean that this guy doesn't get to do X. It's not. That's just he's not that way. I think that's how I view it.
And even Sion James, he doesn't want to do anything on offense, and so that's almost a pure additive. And Kalkbrenner he just wants to catch the ball around the basket and finish that way for the most. That's why he's shooting 1,000,000,000% from the floor. So the fact that these guys, I don't think, need to be marquee developmental projects, or like they don't need top billing when they're on the court, that lends itself to, I would say, easy transition for Charlotte. And by the way, the other number I just wanted to throw out there, though, is that these 3 rookies that we're talking about, Knipple, Sion James, and Kalkbrenner, 85% of their minutes together have come without LaMelo Ball. And the Hornets have a plus 11 net rating in those minutes without being 36% from 3, 120 offensive rating. They're 60% on 2s, but that's nothing like absolutely bonker. That's good, don't get me wrong, and entirely not sustainable, but you're winning minutes with 3 rookies on the court and your quote-unquote 2 tempo players not being alongside them.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Who needs LaMelo? I feel like you don't have to say it out loud, but I understand that's what you mean.
Me, noted LaMelo Ball skeptic, Dan Favale.
Long time hater.
It's time to move on. It's my pick now, right?
Yep.
Ooh, who do we? let's go. We haven't talked about this team yet this season. Noah Clowney, Grant. Kind of a bright spot for the Nets. I would also like to shout out Nicholas Claxton drives are back, baby. Those are also
Good.
back for the Nets. If you look at Noah Clowney's numbers, they're not pretty. The efficiency is not there. He's shooting like he's a coin toss at the rim. His threes aren't really falling. He is, though, you put the ball in his hands and you get him going downhill, he can make some things happen. He's shooting 5 of 9 from floater range right now. He's gotten stronger, and he's gotten a lot better at drawing contact when he's going downhill. He's getting fouled on 24.2% of his drives among 173 players who have finished as many drives as him. That is the second highest foul rate. Would you care to guess who has the highest foul rate? And I will give you the hint of we've already talked about him.
Is it just Shea?
It's Jalen Duren.
Oh,
I've never felt more. I've never felt more like Jalen Duren seems to be doing a better. This is not a Jalen Duren segment, but just reading the room of when he can put the ball. He's always kind of had the short roll intrigue, but it's if he wants to put the ball on the deck, I've never been more comfortable with it, which is in turn making me uncomfortable.
I know he's validating all of the over the years the occasional I think he's got more as a passer. Like, oh, did you see the like they're just the little glimpses of Duren as a facilitator. Or like a decision maker, maybe is the better term. Yep, he's doing it. Back to Clowney.
Clowney can do some of that decision making on drives, and he is over 50% shooting on drives. He's throwing some really nice spray assists out of the drives too. The key for him, I look at his 3-point shot, and I just feel like this is going to be someone who could get to 36% or something. If you're going to add the strength going downhill and the ability to maybe draw fouls and hit your free throws, I think that's a really useful offensive player, whether you view him as he's kind of the in-between big or he's, if you want to, can he be a smaller ball 5? My real question, and to be clear, there are still questions on offense. My real question is, I have zero idea what he's supposed to be able to do defensively at this point because it's not going to be as a rim protector. The strength has not really helped him hold up against individual assignments at really any level of the floor. He also needs to, like, that is someone who could stand to do a better job of getting back in transition. He could also, he's committing, when he's in transition, offensively, he's committing turnovers 35% of the time. Not great either. Just so raw, but there's enough flashes on the offensive end, and we're evaluating him against the rest of the Nets to where bright spots have been, there's been like a few, but not a ton. Yeah. Just something I'm putting a pin in with Noah Clowney. I wouldn't call this a breakout necessarily because I think a breakout would require way more offensive efficiency than we've seen. But I'm just wondering, can the added strength make him a better individual defender? Could it just even help him become a better finisher at the rim? Those are kind of the things I'll be tracking in addition to I'd like to see the 3-point clip come up. And that's the one of the 3 things I talked about. I think that's the one I'm most confident in him being able to improve.
Yeah, I think I would say that like the overall numbers are not good. Like 33% from the field is assist to turnovers, pretty close to 1-to-1. That said, recently he's been better. At least 15 plus points in 4 of the last 5. I think he's made multiple threes in 4 of the last 5. So, the counter would be like, well, somebody has to do something volume wise on the Nets. But I agree with you. He's been a source of intrigue, like going on 3 years now. And like, I think when we talked to Lucas Kaplan, he pointed out that like kind of had a lost season because had an injury, didn't really have an off season, just kind of couldn't hit the ground running. And it made it seem like, well, development stagnated. I guess we can, not saying any of us said this or certainly Lucas didn't, but like we can close the book on that one. We thought maybe there was something there and there's not. I still think there's something there. And I think the core question that you pointed out is right of like, there was a time when we would have just said, can he be a small ball 5 defensively? If no, okay, we're done here. I think there's maybe more room for him to have to fit somewhere if he's not capable of defending as a 5, which it doesn't seem to me like he is. We've gotten to the point now where teams are smart enough to figure out how to use someone like him defensively if the gains are there on offense. Like if the shot does fall, he can be a 4 and you can figure out what to do defensively. He doesn't have to be a center.
Because of his limitations, though, it's going to make him harder to evaluate in a vacuum, but it's harder to come to a sweeping conclusion about him in this situation specifically when you're looking at this Nets team, because it could cut both ways to where it's, well, if he had some better facilitators around him or if the defensive infrastructure overall was better, maybe he can find a role there. But you could also say, would he actually have this type of a role or freedom on a better team that had a
Right.
better like offensive ecosystem, that had a better defensive infrastructure. We don't know, but I'm just intrigued. I think he's probably the player aside from Yegor Joman that's intrigued me the most on the net side. I mean, I love Nick Claxton. Nick Claxton drives are back, by the way. There's just he's like shooting 1,000,000% on them. That you could go double check that. I believe I'm accurate. So some fun stuff for the Nets.
I do. Speaking of, I do enjoy on Spurs broadcast whenever Harrison Barnes shoots, Sean Elliott calls him Mr. 100%, and it'll like as he's saying it, it'll flash the graphic of like he's 2 for 4. it's always good for a laugh. He is shooting like 50%, but so I got one more pick. I think I would like to discuss Jeremiah Fears just
Who's
in
that?
general. He is a player for the New Orleans Pelicans, and before you say who are they are an NBA basketball team nominally. There's been some
On the verge of
question as
getting
to whether
relocated
they're
to
actually going to continue to be a team in New Orleans. Fears is an eye test guy for the most part, and I think we were both kind of. I know I was, and I think you were there with me. Like pretty early on, maybe it was summer league, definitely preseason into early minutes this year of like that guy can kind of get any place he wants. He's
after
just
sorry, I don't want
Go
to
ahead.
assign. I was out on him coming out of the draft. I don't know.
I
where
was
you were
out
with
on
that. It
him
was
in
some-
theory too. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
No, go ahead. We share the same.
No, I was
concerns
putting because you were
initially.
saying that we were in on him, and I just want to make clear. Yes, summer league and preseason kind of turned me on him, but I wasn't a Jeremiah Fears
right.
confidence man. Like
I
thought.
I wonder
didn't
if
see
we
the
watched
appeal.
more college basketball, what we would have thought. Because I wonder if the stuff that pops now would have been obvious even in college. Probably. But but then the concerns are still there, right? He's small. He's like we're kind of collectively getting pretty out on small guards, more increasingly, I would say. The NBA cognoscenti, I guess, not just you and I. We don't like him. We're questioning Darius Garland's value these days, and that's independent of the toe because it's like, well, he's pretty small. I'm making fun of myself because I do that.
What's he supposed to do against Houston and Detroit? That's how we
Can't do.
evaluate
Yeah, I
things
mean,
now.
you just can't see all the angles. There's no way for him to be successful. So, but Fears, just the sheer speed, the quickness, the handle. He really like. I don't know who I would even compare him to. Like as far he's kind of feels throwbacky in that. Like he just gets to the paint when he wants to against a defender that's set and ready to guard him, which is extremely rare. He's not a good shooter. He's got a bunch of turnover issues, but 95th percentile in rim frequency at his position, gets over a third of his shots are at the rim. And he, for that kind of volume, being mid-pack in finishing efficiency at the rim, which he is, it makes 64% of his shots for his position. That's 53rd percentile. That's really good. And that's what you're building off of with him is if he can compromise a defense that way at that frequently and be at least a credible threat to finish, you can okay, then you can't allow the Pelicans to be spaced. Then you can't allow shooters to be out there because eventually he's going to become a good enough passer to find more of them. If you get him a decent roll man, who knows, right? That's not all there in his game yet, but just as a baseline thing, I think that his ability to get where he wants to is kind of a signature skill, and it's pretty hopeless in New Orleans, but that's something where, okay, we got that. We got a guy that can do that, and that's a start.
And his efficiency at the rim was pretty high, and then Zion Williamson gets injured, and just losing that type of draw in the minutes that he was going to play with him. And the other thing, too, is the quality of the looks that he is getting they could be really hard. And
right. That's partly because of his size, right? He's not
it's
finishing
his size,
over
but
anybody.
who else are you worried about on
Right.
New Orleans, especially right now? Trey Murphy, and then the list kind of ends there. I mean, Derek Queen when he's on the court, but that's not going to do anything to pull guys away from Jeremiah Fears. He is the only rookies, Grant, who have taken more contested two-pointers this season are I'm actually laughing. Dylan Harper, this is per game, and he hasn't played in a ton of games, so you can almost throw him out. Cooper Flagg, and then Ryan Kalkbrenner, of course, the efficiency king. Jeremiah Fears is shooting over 53% on contested two-pointers, and we all have concerns about the perimeter thing. He's at 37% on almost 3 catch-and-shoot three-point attempts per game. That's not bad. if that number could hold or come up a little bit, it's going to open things up for his ability to get inside the paint. But what I would point to, just to echo what you said, the frequency is what I'm looking at the most here, because it looks like I think he's going to be a good finisher in this league. And if you ever put, let's say, league average or better spacing around him, it'll just pop. The fact that he's able to get to the basket as often as he has on this specific Pelicans team, when you look at the personnel that's just around him, just something I'm kind of earmarking. I don't know what it's really going to mean for, I don't know what this team looks like tomorrow, quite frankly, let alone next season. But to have this guy being able to do that, if at some point you do move on from a Zion Williamson or you do hit the reset button, there is someone who, and we've seen it with Queen too, but like generating offense is not going to be contingent upon anyone else, but he doesn't need player X or archetype X around him to do what, like the one thing he's dominant at, or his most marketable skill, getting to the rim. It just scales to whatever situation or roster context that we see.
I think we talk a lot about like a carrying skill, and then if we get more exaggerated, it's like he has a superpower. Like if it's a guy that's gonna shoot 41% from three or whatever, it's like Fierce has one. Like he really does look like he has one of those, and that doesn't mean he's going to be a great player, but it means he's going to be great at something, and most guys aren't. So like if you're trying to build these, he's got one of those.
My final pick, I'm going to go with the New York Knicks offense is actually trash, Grant. It sucks. It's gross. I just wanted to talk about the offense for one. I'm willing to donate my ankle to the cause of Jalen Brunson. So if he needs it, just hit me up. I'm willing to give it to you. But also, we get it, and including myself, a lot of people just get ahead of their skis when the Knicks are rolling. They're beating up on some bad teams. Their offense has been borderline awful against real defensive competition. They've only played 3 top 10 defenses, and the Orlando Magic aren't one of them. I know the Magic have been noisy on defense this year, but you look at that team and there's a level that they can get to. They played the Cavs. They won that game, but their offense was in the 30th percentile. They then played the Celtics. They were in the 43rd percentile of offensive efficiency for that game. Then against the Heat, they were in the 13th percentile of offensive efficiency. And then that latest Magic game where Jalen Brunson got injured, the offense was in the 27th percentile. The things that I'm clocking here, and I think what it's also just important to note is they're still trying to learn a new defensive system, a new everything system under Mike Brown. And so that's not going to just be, there's going to be hiccups immediately. And some guys, I think, have found their groove quicker than others. Mikal Bridges being the best example of someone who's just come in and it works. Even OG Anunoby to some extent. They're still uncomfortably relying on Jalen Brunson, and you can see it against teams that are able to bring big bodies or pressure onto their ball handlers. He's the only one that knows how to handle it. And then they revert. We saw it against the Magic maybe earlier than a lot, but we saw it against, we've just seen it multiple times this season where they revert to everything has to go through Jalen Brunson. He's on the ball. We're not moving the ball. We're not trying to get guys going downhill as much or moving Jalen Brunson off the ball as often. That's something that they're either going to need to, what is the balance, or do they just revert to that when things are sloggy because you can't trust Karl-Anthony Towns? And even if you do, the Magic game's another good example. His post touches have basically been halved. They should probably be halved again because the guy just doesn't pass enough out of drives. And Mikal Bridges at this point has been their second best facilitator. And I found myself wondering during games when they're at full strength, is it time to just go Mikal Bridges at point guard? Because they've treated Deuce McBride basically as that almost by default, to where no, he's not doing their traditional backup point guard things, but you're not playing him with the starters a ton, which is my other note here, that the numbers on that lineup is all over the place. But Grant, over the past 5 games, the Deuce plus starters lineup that everybody wanted to see has played a total of 32 seconds. There have been 3 games where they didn't log a single second. I think against the Magic, they logged 14 seconds or 8 seconds or whatever it was. That's a roster construction challenge, I think, more than anything, because who are you? Your first sub, if Mitchell Robinson's not playing, Mike Brown is more inclined to start Landry Shamet at this point. Or the first sub is going to be Landry Shamet for Mitchell Robinson. And Landry Shamet has been fine, but I don't know if the Knicks are doing... Mike Brown has experimented, but I don't know if they're doing enough to get to their best stuff. And they might just be holding out hope for, I would say, a version of Karl-Anthony Towns that is going to be consistent enough that I would call it atypical for Karl Anthony Towns at this point of his career. And just something, look, the 3-point volume is there, the ball movement is there. They're playing faster at points, but they're still one of the, when you look at where their shots are coming from or how long their average offensive possession times are lasting, they're one of the slowest teams when it comes to their first chance offensive pace. I just don't know if that type of speed that Mike Brown traditionally wants to play with, I don't know if you can get it out of this roster. The second unit, sure. But when you're looking at the way that Jalen Brunson is used to playing, the way that Karl Anthony Towns is, I mean, him like running down the floor is like how long that can take. That's not a huge problem. I think this offense is going to end up being really good. But to this point, what did we say about them last year? That their top 5 offense overall felt incredibly flimsy. Right. And at this point, I feel more confident in their offense than I did last season. But we are not at a point where you could just say, oh, this is definitely working for the Knicks. They need to be tested a little bit more. And I still think that there are things they could do with some of the lineups they're running to be better.
So do you think that, because there are indicators that, Brunson's time off the ball, the share of shots that he's not creating for himself, Bridges on ball time, the uptick in handoff frequency, there are these indicators that stuff is different. I'm not saying you're not acknowledging those. Do you think the fix, if one is necessary, or maybe the progress needs to come in the form of just more of those differences, like, even less time on the ball for Brunson, more Bridges on ball, more Mike Brown stuff, just higher rates of that? Or is there something like tactical, like that, okay, these changes actually aren't sufficient even if there are more of them, or like a higher volume of these changes? There needs to be like something different has to happen, and maybe that's a lineup thing. Like, do you see the difference I'm trying to get at?
Right. I ultimately think that it's probably not. I would like to see more of Deuce with the starters, but I recognize if if it's a lineup thing, he's not. What he's doing is, I feel like his impact has maybe felt even more defensively because he's their best point of attack defender, make life easier on OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. What I ultimately think this comes down to is even the Mitchell Robinson version of the start, it's been pretty good. I look at this as a personnel problem, to where they could change a bunch of things, where I kind of get Jalen Brunson's inclination when he has deviated from what they're trying to do. And one, I think he's done a better job of fitting into it than even maybe he's received credit for on a national scale. But this isn't just about them not having a backup point guard. It's really cool to see those high moments from Karl Anthony Towns, or to see what Mikal Bridges has done this year. Unless you trust that one of those guys can actually be the anchor of your offense when Jalen Brunson is off the ball against elite defenses, or just off the floor in general, in the regular season, they will ultimately be fine. We know what they could do with some of their secondary units. When you get to the playoffs, that's when I would still have questions. And those questions aren't going to be answered even if the Knicks have the best offense in the league this year. Just, we have to see once we get to the playoffs. But I find myself wondering more if this team is really good. Mike Brown might be able to optimize it. I just wonder if offensively it's going to be enough to be an optimal offense in the playoffs.
Yeah. I would like you to just tell 2015 Dan that these are the things you're bothered about with the Knicks, and just see what he would say.
They're great problems to have, but you're all in. You fire the coach, you trade away all the picks. I don't know what other moves you're supposed to make. I will continue to bang the Justin Champagnie drum. I think that's something that or also if Memphis is going to tear it down, I'm kind of in love with Cam Spencer at the moment. So if any of those teams want to throw those players this way, but look, to Jalen Brunson absence, I don't like calling these things a blessing in disguise, but now you're going to test this quote-unquote depth, which another thing flying under the radar, by the way, is Gershon Yabusele's been absolutely awful for most of the year. Right. Jordan Clarkson never been more efficient, though, so who saw that coming? I certainly didn't. But will you play Tyler Kolek? And maybe we'll have some of the answers by the time this goes live, I'm sure. Are we going to get to something there's been even, why not just throw Josh Hart, play as fast as you can? There's no Mikal Bridges, no Jalen Brunson on the court, and he's just kind of your de facto. Sure, try more of that. We just haven't seen a ton of it. Now you're going to be forced to do that. But I do find it malpractice. It's going to play more minutes than it did under Tibbs because it's hard not to. But I wanted to see more of Deuce plus the starters. And I wanted Deuce to start. I get why they're not doing that. They haven't been going to it. And Deuce, the game against the Magic, he wasn't very good. But it's that lineup, I think, It just hasn't gotten enough time. It has the potential to be really, really special, and I think it's their most important lineup. But I do ultimately think, and maybe I'll be wrong, this is going to come down to being a personnel thing more than is there a lineup change or a stylistic shift that they could still make?
Got it.
Stat padding is back. We've got a few fun ideas this time. You are free, too, for anyone listening. If you'd like to start sending guess players back in, we'll do maybe like 1 or 2 each time rather than spending like full-length episodes on them. We know our Discord members love it. So, hey, join our Discord. Grant, what do we got cooking first up, though, for stat padding?
Well, Nico Harrison, as you may have heard, is cooked in Dallas, and that leads to some fallout. The next decision seems to be, next question, will Anthony Davis be traded? If so, where to? Good news. We have some ideas to throw back and forth. Would you like to toss out the first potential Anthony Davis trade?
I would absolutely love to. Who says no? Anthony Davis edition. Anthony Davis for Paul George, Jared McCain, and a first-round pick.
Anthony Davis says yes because he gets to play power forward next to Joel Embiid, and he loves that.
But he'll be playing a ton of center with the way that Joel Embiid's available,
well,
right?
That's true. But you could at least tell him that, look, there's a center here. You will not have to bang around with fives. Does Dallas kind of might like Jared McCain in a first-round pick. I don't know how Dallas is going to feel about Paul George. Is Paul George the sticking point in an Anthony Davis trade?
It's a good question. He probably is. I think Dallas ends up saying no to this.
Yeah, I think I probably agree with that. Next trade, Anthony Davis to the Memphis Grizzlies for Ja Morant, Brandon Clark, and Jalen Wells. Who says no to that one?
I think that Dallas should be the team to say no, but I believe it would probably be Memphis as the team to say no here. They're still all in on Ja Morant. You are getting older going from Ja Morant and Jalen Wells to AD, but AD, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Cedric Coward is one heck of a front line.
Kind of fun. And Ja Morant fills an obvious need if you don't believe Kyrie Irving is going to be coming back for Dallas and really playing like Kyrie Irving. And guess what? Cooper Flagg doesn't have to play point guard anymore, which kind of hasn't been lately, but still that's fun. Next trade.
Speaking of Cooper Flagg not having to play point guard anymore, Anthony Davis for De'Aaron Fox and Kelly Olynyk. Who says no?
Wow. I mean, Davis and Wemby up front. You got Dylan Harper and Steph Castle. I mean, I don't know. I don't think San Antonio says no here. Is Dallas the one that says no here? I think Dallas says no.
I feel like San Antonio will be the one to say no because they have Luke Cornett and Wemby. They could play all three of them at the same time. That'd be pretty fun. I think San Antonio says no. De'Aaron Fox is younger and historically more durable. I think San Antonio says no.
So glad I get to present this one to you. Anthony Davis to the New York Knicks for Karl Anthony Towns. Straight up challenge trade. Who says no?
It's the Knicks, right? They say no just based off Anthony Davis's own durability. And I think for what Mike Brown wants to do, shooting a bunch of threes, I know Karl Anthony Towns never takes enough threes, but he's better offensively than Anthony Davis, and Mike Brown is very much geared towards optimizing the offense.
I don't know. I hear Anthony Davis has been working on his three-pointer over the offseason. Sorry, that was 2016 that I heard that, and then every year after it. Give me the last one.
Anthony Davis for Kobe White, Kevin Huerter, Nikola Vucevic, and 2 first-round picks, Grant. Who says no, Chicago or Dallas?
Chicago says no because Dallas says yes to this immediately. 2 firsts. Kobe White's your point guard. You can re-sign him. Vooch comes off the books. Kevin Huerter, I don't know. He's going to space better than Klay Thompson. You got the pieces there.
I think Chicago says no as well, although this might be the one where you could see both teams doing it because the Bulls were the Bulls.
Yeah, and then everyone would hate it, which is how you know it's a good trade.
Next up, Grant, we're going to build the all-NBA disappointment team. A starting 5 and a 6th man. You get to go first with the pick. Who are you taking?
All right. I'm going to start us out real hot. And I want to preface this by saying that this is a disappointment relative to expectations. And I am going to nominate Cooper Flagg, who I think is going to be a great NBA player. However, he is not running away with Rookie of the Year. Part of that's because there are some other very good rookies. Part of that's because he was set up to fail in a stupid Dallas lineup that made him play point guard. You can't say Cooper Flagg has delivered on expectations. Not his fault, but we're not sitting here talking about, well, Dallas is in great shape no matter what. He just hasn't played like we would have hoped. And again, not his fault, but Cooper Flagg has not has disappointed in my eyes.
That's a bold one. My
Yeah.
next pick, I think this should have been the first pick because I believe he's probably been the single most disappointing player in the NBA. John Morant, I don't care about the suspension or the pouting, although I absolutely do. Still can't shoot, not having the same intended impact on the offense that he's supposed to, still not a good defender. And it's just a bummer because this was someone who was considered face of the league material just a couple of years ago. And if you're the Grizzlies, maybe we should have, honestly, it feels like the Grizzlies saw this coming because they ended up trading Desmond Bane at a time when you could have said, oh, yeah, they're just sort of reorienting so they could be lean around John Morant. That makes absolutely zero sense. It was an admission that this era has underachieved, and John Morant continues to underachieve. So I'm taking him with pick number 2.
Do you think it's hurting John Morant's defense, which was already not great, that he's just standing straight up and not moving? Is that helpful?
Honestly,
or
it might be
hurtful?
helping it at this point. So
You said the name.
straight up?
You said the name. I have a short attention span. Desmond Bane has not single-handedly solved the Orlando Magic's offense. I think that was always a little bit of too big of an ask, but his three-point attempt rate is down from Memphis, and it's way below his career average, and it's way, way below his career high. And he's shooting like 4.5 threes. What's going on? This is partly, I mean, actually, let's be honest. This is mostly Orlando's system's fault that is just not allowing him, not using him in a way that would address your spacing issues. I know the Magic's offense has been a little better lately. I just think it's wildly disappointing that Desmond Bane has not come in and fired off like 12 threes a game, because that was the whole idea. Let's space the offense out. Let's use him to unlock the lane for all of our giant forwards that can dribble. What's going on here? The Orlando situation disappoints me, and Desmond Bane is a symbol of that.
Do you think he's been the biggest disappointment of that, or is it more so how they're using him? And is it also on us for thinking he was going to solve basically everything for them when he's not? One of their biggest problems was we need an offensive organizer, which they still clearly do.
All of the above. Just like shoot twice as many threes and you wouldn't be on this list. And that's mostly Orlando's fault. I'm sure Desmond Bane would love to shoot 10, 12 threes a game. It's just not happening.
My next pick, biggest disappointment, I don't like going here because he is currently dealing with some knee stuff, but Joel Embiid, I don't know what I was expecting the ramp up to look like, and he's had some refreshing moments, but just not someone who's going to overpower his way to the basket anymore. It's good that he's learning how to play off of VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey, but just the idea of Joel Embiid not being the central nervous system of everything Philly is doing, and that being the right call for Philly to make, it's just unsettling. Isn't moving the same on defense. It's more so of a bummer, but I kind of hoped that, if he's going to play in smaller bursts like he was, that we could hope for a higher Joel Embiid peak than we have seen so far.
I'll round it out here. This pains me to do it, but we have to. Klay Thompson, one of the greatest shooters of all time, lost his starting job on a team that desperately needed spacing. He just wasn't providing it. He's under 30% from three. He's 35. He's had catastrophic injuries. It's incredible that he had as good of a late prime as he did, but what he provides is what Dallas needed, and he just hasn't brought it. So huge bummer, but Klay Thompson has not met expectations.
Our sixth man is going to be Cameron Johnson. I think he's better defensively than MPJ was for them, but he right now just cannot hit a wide open three. Sub 30% on wide open threes. We've seen some air balls on wide open threes, and it's probably good for the Nuggets that they've been able to be as good as they are without him playing up to his current level. But that was billed as this game-changing addition, and he hasn't really been that to them thus far. And if their bench or if some of their role players weren't playing so well off the bench for them, I'd be curious to see if there was a bigger impact on their offense with Cam Johnson playing the way that he has.
Deeply annoyed because he's ruining my two-part theory of leave Jokic, get bad, join Jokic, get good. Has not happened so far.
Is he the first player to join you, aside from Yusuf Nurkic, of course?
He's patient zero. He's patient zero for debunking the Jokic two-part theory.
Do you want to build the All-NBA breakout team next?
I think that's a much more positive endeavor. Let's do that. Do I get the first pick? That's fun. I think I'm going to go Jalen Duren. Scoring up around 19 points a game is suddenly like a legitimate secondary creator as a roll man and ISO like attacker. His passing has been more consistent, and a lot of this is Isaiah Stewart, but Jalen Duren is part of just the best in the paint team on both ends in the league. So pretty spectacular step forward for him.
I'm going to take with my first pick, Alperen Şengün. He's already been an all-star, but what we're looking at is all NBA, back of the ballot MVP type stuff from him. Nerve center of Houston's offense, which has actually been pretty efficient, even though it's not always pretty. He is averaging 22 points, shooting over 40% from three, grabbing a ton of rebounds, averaging over 7 assists. It has been amazing to watch him work amid what is still less than ideal spacing when you look at Houston's most played lineups.
I'm going to go with Austin Reeves. I mean, had the 50-pointer, had the game winner, a bunch of double-digit assist stuff. Missed a little bit of time, but now we're talking about like, well, how many max years do the Lakers have to give him to beat the market in free agency when he opts out? That was not a conversation we were having prior to the season. It played at an all NBA level for long stretches of this early season, certainly at an all-star level. Just the on-ball creation has leveled up. He just looks like a guy you could actually run your whole offense through if you wanted to, and he's positioned to be like the number 2 option. So a pretty spectacular leap for him.
My next pick, I'll go with Tyrese Maxey. We don't care about positions here, in case anyone's wondering.
No.
Over 32 points a game, over 44% from three on 9 attempts per game. He now looks like someone you could run your entire offense through as well. Over 8 assists, has the some inside the arc noise to begin the season, but has the floater going. He is, again, we're talking about someone who's already on a max contract, recognized as a star or a fringe star, and he's making what feels like an all-NBA leap right now. And the Sixers, despite not having Paul George, despite Joel Embiid being banged up, not playing like Joel Embiid, they've still been competent. And that's mostly because of Tyrese Maxey going nuclear.
I'm so excited I get to mention this player. Jaime Jaquez Jr., who kind of felt like last year was the end of him as a rotation player. Now, the Miami Heat are doing a lot of things well. I'm not sure almost any of them work quite as effectively if Jaquez is not barreling up the floor, on the ball all the time, by the way, running into you and either spraying a pass out or scoring at the rim. Still not a great shooter, and maybe that gets like gamed against or schemed against, but he's been just overpowering as an offensive on-ball threat, like 17, 7, and 5 as we record this. He's just like, didn't save, it's excessive to say he saved his career, but he's like one of the biggest reasons the Heat have been an incredibly exciting story this season.
My final pick going to Denny Avdia. Probably would have been involved in this exercise last season, but if you're going to come in from last season and now average over 26 points and around 5 assists per game while upping your 3-point percentage, while shooting better on 2-pointers, while running the entire Blazers offense, when you look at the injuries, playing super fast, giving them really good defense, especially in some of their more positionless lineups. As of right now, if we were to do all-star teams today in the wacky setup that Adam Silver has concocted, he is probably making one in the Western Conference, that's insane. What do you want to move on to next, Grant? Are you ready for some trivia?
Let's hit it.
So I have 2 sets of we're going to talk scoring here. Grant, which NBA player has the higher career scoring high? Luka Doncic or Donovan Mitchell?
I'm going to say, doesn't Luka have like I'm going to say Luka.
He does. 73 points to Donovan Mitchell 71.
Oh, I forgot Mitchell had a 71. I knew Luka had a 70 in there.
Giannis Antetokounmpo or Joel Embiid?
Well, did the Pacers steal the game ball when Joel Embiid set his career high? I'm going to go Giannis.
That is incorrect. Joel Embiid had 70. Giannis tops out at 64. John Morant or Zion Williams? John Morant or Zion Williamson?
No number jumps to mind right away for this one. I'm going to go with Ja just because he's played a little more.
That is correct. 52 is his career high. Zion, 43.
Underwhelming.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or Klay Thompson?
What is Shai? I don't know what Shai. I'm going to go Klay.
It is Klay, 60, and then Shai had a double nickel, which he dropped this past year.
Guarantee you Shai dribbled more.
Anthony Edwards or Trae Young?
I'll say Ant.
That is incorrect. Anthony Edwards, 53. Trae Young, 56. You should have known that one. LaMelo Ball or Cade Cunningham?
I'll say Cade.
That is incorrect. Cade's career high is 46. LaMelo's is 50.
Oof, forgot that.
Final one, Austin Reeves or Jalen Williams? J-Dub.
I don't think J-Dub's got fit. I have to say Reeves.
You are correct. Reeves had his 51 burger this season. J-Dub has topped out at 41. Last one for you. 6 active NBA players have multiple 60-point games. Can you name all of them? I will give you 3 strikes.
Steph.
That is correct. 1 of 6.
Damian Lillard.
Correct. That's 2.
Multiple 60s. I mean, Kevin Durant.
Incorrect. Strike 1.
Greatest scorer of all time. Come on. Let's see. Who else has got multiple 60s? I'll say Embiid.
That is incorrect. Strike 2.
Oh, no. We are not going to get to any of these. You might have to give me a hint so I don't strike out after just 2 correct guesses.
Fight your most natural impulses.
Fight my most natural impulses. What does that even mean? I don't know what my natural impulses are. That's a terrible.
You're missing.
clue.
Here's your hint. You're missing a very obvious player.
Okay, is it LeBron?
Incorrect. Strike 3. Honestly, I'm ashamed.
Oh man.
Here's the full list. James Harden, 5 60-point games.
Okay.
You got Damian Lillard. He's had 4. Steph had 2. These other 3 players also had 2. Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, and Karl Anthony Towns.
What was the fight my natural instincts? Choose cat?
I thought you were going to go with LeBron, which you did, and you didn't fight it. So.
But he's a passer, Dan. He's not a scorer. That was a natural instinct. That was
the greatest
tough. Poor
scorer of all
performance.
time, apparently.
Yeah.
2 of 6. I expected you to get. I didn't think you were going to get Towns. I thought
No.
I thought you would get Harden for sure, and I thought you would have gotten Doncic just because you previously knew he had the 73-point game.
Yeah.
So
The important part is I was 2 for 2, and then I stopped trying. I think. Should we frame it that way?
let's go with that. Yeah, let's go with that.
Did we do it?
Do you
I think
have
we did
anything
it.
else, or are you ready to take us out of here?
Good draft, good content, good discussions. I think that is going to cover it, though. Thanks, everybody, for listening, for watching. Let us know what you thought in the comments. Make sure you're sharing this, giving us thumbs up on YouTube. Join our Discord. Links for that in the YouTube and podcast description. If you're wherever you're listening to this, 5 stars helps. Nice reviews help. Anything to help grow the pod, appreciated. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Shouts, Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.